Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to part 3 of overclocking for mining and gaming. So, I've had a lot of issues between this video and the last video. Um, it's taken me a couple days to upload this one. Sorry, I got frustrated after the last one didn't work out, and I've just been busy with work and stuff. So, here's the problem: that Windows 10 WHQL support or whatever that I turned off. Even though it was letting us mine on the last one, when I was playing on this one and doing the video, I tried to run Doom and I tried to run Counter Strike, and neither of them were working. Constant crashes, like pretty much immediately. As soon as the game opened up and stuff, they would just crash down, wouldn't work. I tried to reset all my settings and stuff like that. I tried to run them at stock speeds, could not get anything to work. Um, and I just eventually had to, pretty much like my last videos, switch back to my original BIOS, timing straps, on the graphics card. And then I went back and I uninstalled AMD in the programs, in the add remove programs, used DDU in safe mode, um, wiped all my AMD drivers, ran it again in safe mode, wiped all my AMD drivers, um, came back in, reinstalled all my drivers back up to 18.2.1, and flashed my BIOS back over to the one with the timing straps that I like. And since then, it's been working perfect as far as I can tell. So, what we're going to do today is show you the overclocking on the game side real quick. So, this is pretty much the stock settings when I pull up MSI Afterburner. And the best way to go about overclocking for gaming is pretty much trial and error. Kind of like with everything on overclocking, it's a lot of trial and error. So, fair warning, get ready for some crashes. Get ready for restarting your PC. Don't plan on overclocking within the next 10, 20 minutes and then gaming for the next 7 hours. It's probably not going to happen like that. You're probably going to spend a day, if not more, tinkering and overclocking and trying different games and running different settings and speeds and stuff like that until you find out where you can sit stable on pretty much all your different games and be happy with it. And that's what it's really all about, is getting that maximum speed you can get for every game over the stock speeds and never have crashes. So I know for a fact that this is pretty much my max settings that I can run for most of the games that I play, the max overclock that I can run for most of the games. Now, I've never tried to do this on these settings while streaming. I'm sorry, while recording at the same time. I'm not streaming, am I? Nope. Okay, good. I'm recording. Thank God. So, um, I've never tried to do it, so we're gonna, give it a shot. So the difference between stock and here, just to show you again real quick, is here. That's stock settings. Turn my fan curve back on real quick. And then once I click this, what it does is it increases my core voltage by up to about 31, maxes out my power limit, keeps temp limit where it's at because max is always going to be 90 if it reaches 90 degrees Celsius. This card is going to thermal throttle no matter what you do. I don't ever recommend turning off there. I mean, there is a way to go in that, and I think, and raise your temperature limit. Don't ever do that. You don't ever want to damage your card by going too hot. 90's where it is done getting hotter at, so leave it there. Core clock. So in gaming, like I said before, the core clock is what's going to affect your gaming performance or your frames per second the most. Is how high you can get this guy, and then the memory clock will help on top of that as well too. But the core clock is where you'll see the biggest benefits. Like if I left this at stock, cranked my memory clock way the fuck up, I wouldn't get anywhere near as many frames per second as I would if I clocked this core clock up and left the memory speed where it's at. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just crank back up to my highest settings so you can see them again. So 31 maxed out power limit, 1450 up from I believe like what 12 something, 1268 goes up to 1450, and then from 1750 up to 1900 on my memory clock. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK and apply those settings. And obviously you see my core clock over here didn't jump up to these settings because it's not running right now, so it doesn't need to run at those settings. If it ran at those all the time, your card would be hot as shit, and just wear itself out too quickly. So because we're going to try and record this, I'm going to turn my core clock down a little bit because I don't want it to completely crash my computer while we're trying to record. Hopefully it'll only crash just the game that we're playing if it really comes down to that. So um, I guess the best way to show you, actually, what I should do is show you the difference and what you can expect between running the two games, or running the two different settings between stock and overclocked real fast. So we'll go to stock. The way to get it back to stock, change this, and then click OK. So everybody loves to do benchmarks. That's always, a good way to show it. Heaven benchmark is one of the most common ones out there. I really do like the 3D mark ones though. They're super, super fucking demanding. But we'll run Heaven just because I can run it pretty quickly. Why is it doing Windows command processor? That's weird. I don't think I need to run it as administrator. We're just going to do open. And I have it set to the extreme settings, which pretty much, DirectX 11, quality at ultra, tessellation at extreme, anti-aliasing at ×8, and it runs at 1600 by 900 in windowed mode. So that's not taking up the whole screen and shit like that. So we're going to go ahead and run this, and you can see my MSI Afterburner stats up at the top. Let me turn on my frames per second so you can actually get a view of that real quick. We'll turn on frame rate. Here we go, okay. And that should apply the frame rate into here. So we're at stock settings, and we're going to go ahead and hit benchmark. And it's going to go ahead and pop out a score for us real quick. Now this benchmark does take a little bit. When I upload this video, I'm going to try to figure out how to kind of like fast forward on this part if I can. If not, if I don't figure it out, I'm sorry. You can fast forward through this if you want. But it is pretty to watch. There's no doubt about that. This is a cool little benchmark. But you can see, we're getting anywhere between 60, I guess 47 to 100 frames per second. Keep that in mind. This is ultra settings as well too. It's the extreme settings. So it does crank everything way the fuck up for the most part. If you see somebody else running this benchmark and they're not on that extreme setting, if they have some kind of like custom preset setting, in that very first scene where you see the stones and the rocks, if their stones are all flat like tile, and they're not running their shit anywhere near the highest anti-aliasing or tessellation or whatever the hell it is that causes that effect, and that's a big drastic difference in frames per second. So if you see somebody else with the same card or whatever and they're getting way higher frames per second, and you're like, oh, what the hell, why isn't he getting the same? It's because of the quality presets. When you put in extreme details into sorry, I'm gonna check real quick because I know the last time I ran this benchmark it was so fucking loud nobody could hear what I was saying half the time. But I don't want to screw with the performance of it, so I'm just going to keep letting it run, I guess. Hopefully you can hear me. I'll try to talk a little bit louder. This is a loud as benchmark. So, what I was saying is the quality is really the biggest impactor of your frames per second when you're playing games and stuff like that. I just watched a video today from Tech Deals. He used a 1050 Ti to play Grand Theft Auto 5 at 4K settings, 60 frames per second, no problems whatsoever. The trick, was just turning his quality settings all the way down to normal, I believe he had him at. But a 1050 Ti being able to run 4K on normal, that's pretty fucking good. It's not like the game looked bad by any standards, it's not the lowest setting possible. Now, obviously, Grand Theft Auto isn't the most demanding game. You couldn't run, like Battlefield 1 or anything like that at 4K on a 1050 Ti at normal. I highly doubt you could even run it at its lowest setting possible. It would be shit. But to know that you can run something like Grand Theft Auto at 4K from a 1050 Ti, which was like originally $150 card or some crap like that MSRP or even less, I think it was around 150 maybe. That's pretty fucking awesome because I've been running most of my stuff at 1080p ultra settings on this RX 570 because that's all my monitor will let me do. So apparently I need to upgrade my standards a little bit and go for a better monitor that can display past 1080 and see what this RX 570 can actually handle. Because everything I do is just 1080 and it's usually either high or ultra settings that I set all my games at because I don't play new AAA titles. I just don't want to spend $60 on games constantly. It seems like a waste of money because I'll end up not playing it and it'll just go unused after a week or two after I beat it or whatever. But alright, we're up to scene 21 out of 26 if you're still following along with me and listening to me talk. I am super fucking excited. My Ryzen 5 2600 will be here in 3 days, which is Friday. It releases on Thursday, the 19th, and I will have it Friday. So I will be doing a video of, dropping in the 2600 and doing some benchmarks and all that kind of stuff and seeing what kind of overclock I can get on it with my X370 motherboard. I really need to do a BIOS update on my motherboard before that day happens because I'm going to end up fucking forgetting about it and having to wait for my BIOS update to do it. So, click the subscribe button, follow along, check it out. If you want to see some numbers on that 2600 from a normal person's point of view, because obviously all these big tech YouTubers all have these chips early and they're benchmarking and testing stuff and all that kind of stuff, but they all seem to be really focused on the 2600X and the 2700X, which are, higher clocked and blah, blah, blah. So, getting back to this real fast, our average was 56, score was 1432, not too shabby. We're going to go and close this, and close this all the way. Maybe I have to hit escape. So now we're going to go into MSI Afterburner and we are going to crank our settings back up. And again, I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I really don't want it crashing on us. So we're going to go to 1400 just to be safe. And we're going to go ahead and run the Heaven benchmark again. Extreme settings as well. Now, since I have it closed, let me turn down desktop audio so maybe you can hear me talk this time in case you couldn't before. And we're going to go ahead and hit run on the extreme settings and see what we can do. It should give us around 100 and something points with this kind of an overclock. I believe that's usually what I get, unless I did it at 1450 before. But see these rocks down here in the bottom, that's what I'm talking. If you watch somebody else doing this benchmark and they've got flat white tiles all the way across here, they are not testing it at ultra settings or the extreme or the anti-aliasing at ×8 or whatever it is. And that's a huge drastic difference in performance, sucking for your frames per second, whether you have your anti-aliasing on, because you can see it's a drastic difference in detail in small things, and that causes a huge impact in frames per second, whether you have your minor details turned way up or not. So if you're not getting the frames per second that you want out of your card, you have, two options. You can either change your display setting, which would be either 720p, 1080p, 1440, 2160, and 4K. So as you scale from 720 all the way up to 4K, it's more demanding on your graphics card, obviously. If you're playing at 1440 or 4K or whatever the hell it is that you're playing at, and you have the details turned all the way down to low, you have everything preset all the way to low, and you're still not getting good frames per second or the frames that you want, it's time to drop down, bro. Yes, we all want to play at 4K, we all want to play at 2K or even 1440 or whatever it is, but that just might not be the option for your card if you have everything else turned all the way down. Your quality presets, if they're turned all the way down and you can't pull the frames out, you have to drop down a display value. It's just kind of the way it works. That's, how your scaling works. So you drop down from, let's say, 1440 to 1080p, and you could barely get the frames you wanted at low on 1440. You should be able to get decent frames on anywhere from medium to high on 1080p. Now, if you go up to ultra at 1080p, that's extremely, extremely more demanding than high settings. The difference between ultra and high or very high, or whatever the second to highest setting is usually for almost all these games, is very drastic. So if you go down just that one setting from ultra to very high or whatever it is, you'll probably gain a huge jump in frames per second, and you really won't notice that much of a difference in detail. And yes, it's going to be there, it will be, but it's not like it makes the game unplayable. You're not playing in pixels or anything like that by changing down, 1 to 2, even 3 settings in quality textures. So, think about it. But, everybody thinks that you got to get a 1080 fucking Ti, to be able to play 4K. And to an extent, it's not true at all. If you want to play the newest games, the most demanding, games on the fucking market that have the most amazing, brilliant graphics, and you want to play it at ultra settings at 1080 or at 4K, then you're gonna need, at least 2 fucking 1080 Ti's, linked together or whatever for that kind of shit, if not more. But if you want to play 4K low, medium settings, you don't need anywhere near a 1080 Ti. It just all depends on the game you're playing and what kind of quality preset you're willing to drop down to be able to get the display ratio that you want. But yeah, I really need to step my game up above the 1080p. That's my two next upgrades after this 2600. I gotta get I want to get a new case. I don't need a new case by any standard. There's really good airflow in this case that I have. It's mesh on the front with two fans and a big ass 240 millimeter fan up top, and an exhaust fan and a side fan. It's not bad, but I just don't like the look. It's just kind of boring and bland. And there's not good cable management, but that's, I guess, kind of my fault as well too. But I got RGB shit all up in it, and the blue fans look cool, but we always want something better. So case and monitor are really what I want next after this 2600. But I was thinking about stepping up to a 240 millimeter liquid cooler too after this 100, because this 120 is cool, but I think it'd be even nicer with a 240 with two RGB fans on it and everything. All right, so we went from 50 something frames per second up to 62 frames per second, and our score was 1430 up to 1577. So got quite a good jump, in performance there at ultra extreme presets. So not too shabby at all. Now, what we can do is see, like, I wish I could show it in Overwatch, but I can't. My screen, even though it's 1080p, it only displays out at 60 frames per second, and Overwatch just will not let me go like 60 to 70 frames per second. Won't let me display anything other than that. So what I would like to give a try um, is Doom. Doom's always fun. So let's try and open up Doom and see what kind of frames per second we get at the 1400. Actually, you know what? Let's go down to stock. Do that again. We'll do stock, and we'll run Doom at stock, do a scene real quick, kill some shit, and then overclock it, go back, do that same fucking one, and see what kind of numbers we get on there. And apparently Steam is updating, which never fucking fails when I'm trying to do something. It just loves to load on me. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna be doing another video as well, like an overview of how everything's been with the 2400G. Um, my recommendations, what kind of problems that I had, and how minor they were compared to what kind of performance this guy gets. And then we'll upgrade that bad boy in the 2600 and see what kind of scores they can get in some simple benchmarks and stuff compared to what my 2400G is pushing out. Oh, another gripe I want to complain about real quick is userbenchmark.com. I just got to say, fuck that website. They give you absolutely no warning that the first benchmark that you run off their website is the one and only benchmark that is ever going to be loaded up onto their website for other people to see. And that pisses me off because I have the fastest 24. Alrighty, guys, and that would be where OBS crashed on me. So, usually it's, the video game or, the app that you're running that crashes when you try to overclock and shit like that, but OBS crashed for some reason on me. So I'm not really too sure why, but I'll look into it in the future, I guess. But that just goes to show, shit can crash on you fucking randomly even when you don't have it overclocked. So, getting back to the point, I've been trying to make this video for days, and it just keeps giving me issues, and I just keep having problems. I can't seem to get it going properly. So really, I don't know. The only other thing to talk about real quick is going to be, I guess I didn't really mention like how I did with the mining, how to kind of like step your overclock up on this card. So when you load up MSI Afterburner, it's going to put all your stuff at stock. Pretty much right off the bat, if you've got good airflow in your case, you got a couple fans in the front for intake, couple fans for exhaust, or whatever it is, you're going to want to crank your power limit for the most part all the way up. And just let it, run wild in video games for the most part. And then from there, your core voltage, if you have really, really, really good airflow, turn your core voltage all the way up too. But I don't think that's a good idea for most cards. So anywhere from 0 up to, 10 to 20 something is a good core voltage to start off with. And then slowly start stepping your card up. So first off, if you look at the stock settings for your card. Most cards can get anywhere from, 100 megahertz to 300 megahertz overclock. in the mid range, like the RX 560s, 70s, 580s, the GTX 1060, 1070. You should easily be able to get 100 to 300 megahertz overclock, on most of those cards. Obviously, on mine, I'm only going up to about 1450, so I'm not even getting 200 on mine, which I was kind of hoping for more, but what can you do? That's just kind of the way it works. And then on your memory clock as well, go up by 50s at a time. Once you find, crank your core clock up, and then try and run some apps, see where it can go, go up by 100. Crank this up by 100, go run a game, see if it sits stable. If it does, come back, go up by another 100, go up by another 100, try and run some games, see if it's stable. If it does, great, keep going, and then go up by 50s and stuff like that. And if you do go up by 100 and it crashes and it burns, go back down by 50, so instead of being at 1268, jump right up to, let's say, 1360. Oh, it actually will go to 8. What do you know? So bam, 100. Go run your game. If that crashes, just go back down by like 50, to about 1310, 1320-ish range, and try from there. And if it runs, go back up a little bit. And then if it crashes, go back down a little bit. That's the way to find your stable overclock. And at the same, you'll bump this up at the same time as well. That's all I did. I just kept moving this up until I think I had it like 1475 or 1500 or whatever before, and nothing would fucking run stable for the most part. Um, and then I moved my memory clock up, and it seemed to help out a little bit, but at the same time, it's just every card is going to be different. Same with every processor, CPU. They're all going to be different on what they can overclock to and what temps and what they achieve. So just tinker with it, move it around. Just to touch on the fan curve part, most people seem to have some questions about fan curve and stuff like that from what I've seen in chats. It's really simple. You literally just move your dots. If I put it back to default, that's what it sets at default. So pretty much it always has your card running at 40% fan speed for the most part, um, at 30 degrees or below. And then it cranks up from there and stuff like that. But it cranks up slow as shit. But on my custom one, I have a much more steep one. Oh shit, it changed everything, that motherfucker. So I guess we'll do it real quick for you. So crank it down. Anything below about 36 degrees, that fan doesn't need to be running whatsoever. So I put it down at 0% fan speed here on the left at 36 degrees, and that's your first plot. Next one, I like to have it because my card likes to sit around 55 degrees when it's mining, 54 to 56, depending on what the temp is outside here in Florida. So I pretty much like to have it running even with itself, like, 56 degrees, running about 55. I could do 56 for 56, but I'll try to get the lowest speed I can possible. And then here, as well too, 70. If it's running at 70 degrees, which is pretty damn warm, it can crank up to about, I don't know, let's say 75. And 71, 70 to 75. And then for here, I don't, there's no reason to wait until 90 degrees where you're thermal throttling to run at 100%. If it gets up to, let's say, 85 degrees, at 100%, might as well fucking have it going at 100%, to try and stop itself from thermal throttling so you don't hit that wall of performance because you hit max temperature. And I'm just going to hit OK. And then you apply, like in here, you turn on the custom fan thing here, user defined, enables user defined software automatic fan control mode. So you just click that, and that turns on your automatic fan controller, your curve that you just set. And it's just, simple as that for the most part. Other than that, if I miss something or if I didn't cover anything, I'm not going to go through and try and overclock games and show you tons of gains and performance shit like that because I want this video to be over with. I'm just now about to start ripping my computer apart and cleaning it and stuff like that and blowing out the radiator and the GPU and all that kind of good shit because my what's it called? 2600 will be here in 2 days, and I cannot fucking wait. So I'm gonna start getting that video going here. But if you guys got any questions, if I missed something, please feel free to comment below. If it helped you out in here, if you learned something new, please hit the like button. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for stopping by, and have a very good day. And hopefully you are getting a Ryzen 2 along with me, and we can chat about what kind of numbers we're hitting and shit like that. But see you in the next one. Bye.